This lecture has been made available to you courtesy of the American Numismatic Society.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Today, we're joined by Alessandro Cavagna, who's an associate professor of ancient numismatics at the University of Milan, where he also serves as deputy director of the Postgraduate School of Cultural Heritage. He's a board member of the Italian Institute of Numismatics and has authored numerous articles and other publications, including several monographs on the Ptolemies. Today, he'll be speaking with us about Giovanni Dattari and his renowned collection of Ptolemaic coins.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I share the PowerPoint. Okay. It's okay?
Yep, looks great.
So, first of all, I would like to thank the American Numismatic Society for the very welcome invitation to present a lecture of mine at this long table. So thank you very much. I'm truly, truly honored. As always, numismatics and other humanities enable us to build bridges in times that are not easy in international relationships. So thank you very much for the invitation. I have chosen to talk about Giovanni Dattari in order to offer everyone the dimension of research on this man that we have been conducting here in Milan for at least 40 years. In the mid-20th century, we saw an Egyptologist devoted to Dattari about 10 lines. An extensive and up-to-date biography and a fairly in-depth reading of his scientific works was already offered in 2015 in Giovanni Dattari, un numismatico italiano al Cairo, written by Adriano Savio, Tommaso Lucchelli, and me. From the book, I will take my inspiration. Let me start the same way Joseph Heller opened his masterpiece Catch-22. It was love at first sight. That line sums up how I feel about Giovanni Dattari. I first came across his name back in 1993, when I was a young student, still figuring out what I want to do. I was deep into Greek and Roman studies, archaeology, and Italian literature, and I happened to enroll in a numismatics course with Professor Adriano Savio, someone I didn't know at that time would become such a key figure in my academic life. One part of that course focused on the Abukir medallions, which I had never heard of before. I was amazed by how unusual and extraordinary they were, unlike anything I had seen. The gold itself was a real draw, and the incredible skill and craftsmanship of the engravers who crafted those die were simply stunning. However, what really pulled me in as a young student was the story behind them. I'm not going into details here, but back in 1902, Dattari had tried to buy some of these medallions from Monsieur et David, but the deal fell through. Dattari wasn't happy, and soon after started claiming that medallions were fakes. Whether he really believed that or just said it out of frustration is up for debate. In any case, what I realized in 1993 is that Giovanni Dattari was an Italian man who, for some reason, had been living in Cairo between the late 19th and early 20th century in a strange house reminiscent of Neo-Gothic style foreign to contemporary Egypt. Later, this is the house of Dattari in Cairo. Later, I found out that the house had an architecture that reminded me of buildings from my childhood in Piedmont in northern Italy. Thin shutter windows, castle-like battlements, and a certain romantic eccentricity. Here, for instance, is one of the villas in Rosazza, a charming little village in the north of Piedmont, not far from where I grew up. The Italian setting with which I was familiar don't have, indeed, much in common to Cairo, with its colors and temperatures completely different from those of a mountain Italian village. But that house somehow brought them together. Later on, I learned more from a lovely conversation between Savio and Alexandre Corday, who had visited that house often as a kid. Dattari was long gone by then, but his daughter Maria, here in the photo, was still living there. She is the same Maria Dattari who pops up in the Naga Hammadi manuscript case in the 50s. So that's a whole other story. Here you can see a photo of the house taken by Corday that really shows off how the neo-Gothic palace in Cairo looked like. Another photo from the Nag Hammadi archive of the Claremont Graduate University clearly shows the Italian star shutters. In it, you can see Marianne Dorès, Jean Dorès, and to the left, Etienne Drioton, who, at the time, was director of the Department of Antiquities of Egypt. The house was called Villa Maricca, probably named after Maria Dattari, was often called the castle because of its mini-medieval look. Bruno Spadavecchia, who spent his childhood in Cairo, met Maria there in 1952 and described the place as a very beautiful and castle-like, although in a reduced form. It was located not far from the Italian and British embassies. Today, sadly, the Dattari castle no longer exists. Maria, eventually, donated the place to the Coptic Church, with them passed it to the Evangelical Church. The latter demolished it and built a temple in its place. Frankly, the whole neighborhood changed, especially after the revolution of the 50s. Foreign-owned buildings were replaced by the Egyptian government to make room for new Egyptian middle-class houses. The famous now disappeared castle was near the square nowadays dedicated to Simón Bolívar, as shown by the presence of a statue gifted by the Colombian government in 1979. It's very strange to find Simón Bolívar in Cairo, but this is the reality. It is just around the corner from Tahrir Square. Tahrir Square is the bottom of this photo, in what used to be called Kasr el-Dubara district. Back in the early 20th century, the district had a European Levantine flavor, with stunning villas like Villa Casdagli. You can see now and in the past the villa. The latter, a stylish and elegant villa surrounded by a large garden, was designed by Katawi and Matasek for a wealthy Georgian Caucasian merchant family. Let's remain a bit longer inside the house. The interior of the house remains shrouded in mystery. All we have is a photo found by Thomas Fauché in an album now kept at the Centre d'études alexandrines. It shows Dattari's office as if it were since the late 19th century, full of Egyptian antiquities, European furniture, and a well-supplied library that you can partly see on the left of the photo. That library was later sold on May 25, 1993 by Lloyd Numismatic in Zurich. Pietro Baiocchi, whose parents knew Maria, said she had deliberately separated the library from the rest of her belongings. Sylvia Hurter told Savio in 1993 that the library had been sold to Bangloy by a Greek collector who had lived in Egypt for many years. That photo and the story surrounding it give a sense of the world that Dattari moved in. And now we come back to the 1993, when I had no idea that Savio would become the world's leading expert on Dattari. But it became clear soon enough. His deep dive into Alexandrian coins led him straight to Dattari, who arguably had the most impressive collection in the world, encompassing over than 13,000 pieces. Since the 80s, Savio had been digging through archives, recovering documents, letters, and anything else tied to the enigmatic Italian living in Cairo. And it is since 1993 that, with admirable constancy, Savio has introduced me to the partly unknown world of Dattari. In the late 90s, Giulio Bernardi sent Savio a box full of Dattari's original documents. This included the two inventories of the Alexandrian coin collection and the new edition of the catalog, never published. Everything was sorted into blue folders, carefully packed by someone we don't know, or maybe by Maria Dattari herself. We are still analyzing those documents, and more publications are on the way. I don't know when, but on the way. As for the rest of Dattari's stories, how he came to Egypt, his job at Thomas Cook, his relationship with Eudoxia Tsifada, or why Italy never got his coin collection, we'll save for another time. What I want to zoom in is his work with Ptolemy coins, which got us really intrigued. We know that Dattari arrived in Egypt somewhat by chance. From the 1870s to the 1880s, he worked as a courier attached to the traveling agency of Thomas Cook and Son. We know this because of a travel diary which said that on September 16, 1882, he was in Boston as a guide for a small group of people on a round-the-world tour, which included a visit to Egypt. Then, on October 21, 1883, he was in Milan, here, working as a courier to help Mary Adelaide, Queen Victoria's cousins, and their husband Francis Fontecche on their trip to Italy, which showed he hadn't set up home in Egypt yet. Thomas Cook later gave him a military-style assignment, helping transport supplies up the Nile for the British Army during the Mahdi rebellion in Sudan. Between 1884 and 1885, he worked for Thomas Cook in Upper Egypt, where he welcomed travelers who were, at least according to an American tourist diary, attracted by the climate, the antiquities, the natural life and beauty of the Nile Valley, or, as Flaubert's erotic Odyssey suggests, by dancing girls. These words are reported by Savio in our book. The same diary also gives us one of the few accounts of his character. The tourists praise him for his elegance, his good knowledge of English, his excellent assistance, and his brilliant travel companion. It was probably around the end of the 80s that Dattari moved to Cairo from Florence. He started collecting pharaonic objects and Greek and Roman coins in the early days of his stay in Egypt, and this date was fixed by William Joseph Myers, an English collector of Egyptian objects who met Dattari in Cairo during one of his trips to Egypt between 1894 and 1897. Dattari swiftly achieved specialization in his business by monopolizing the trade in Alexandrian coins, which, in contrast, were underdealt with by other sellers operating those years. It was during this period that the Egyptian section of numerous collections were established, with thousands of objects emerging from these commercial establishments. According to Dattari's papers, it seemed that he often visited Maurice Naaman's workshop, the same situation, the house in the past and the house now with a garage in front of it. Which was the Naaman workshop was the place where most of the papyri that are now in European and American collection were sold. It seems that Dattari and Naaman worked together for a long time and respected each other's areas of expertise. Naaman sold coins to Dattari and bought pharaonic objects from him, as we can see from a record of an 18th dynasty piece in the British Museum here in the center of the photo. This piece was purchased in 1902 from Naaman and who had previously been in the Dattari collection. This is an exceptional bronze axe head with an inscription of Amenhotep II. However, Dattari didn't run a shop. He did this coin trading in the room of his castle. By the late 19th century, Dattari, always buying everything he found in Upper and Lower Egypt, had focused his collecting even more. When he published Nummi Augustorum Alexandrini or Augusti Alexandrini in 1901, his catalog showed how serious and specialized he had become both as collector and a numismatist. Coins were his passion, but everything else became a way to fund that passion, and the biggest sales and auction of objects began. In 1909, Charles Langfrere bought over thousands of items from Dattari, including 1,400 pieces of glass, 22 vases dating back to the 18th and 19th dynasties, 4 Greek vases, amulets, and other artifacts of significant value for a total amount of 2,500 pounds. In 1920, a significant auction of Egyptian, Greek, and Roman antiquities took place at the Hôtel Drouot in Paris, resulting in the acquisition of 622 additional pieces by European and American collections. However, it is presumed that this sale did not meet Dattari's expectations. According to Newberry, the Egyptian objects were in fact sold too cheaply. Between 1890 and 1910, Dattari put together also a huge collection of Ptolemaic coins, maybe in the hundreds, if not thousands. We don't have an inventory, like the one for the Alexandrian coins, but several references appear to substantiate the Italians' interest and, moreover, seem to suggest that during this period, many, if not all, the Ptolemaic coins found in Egypt were studied by Dattari or simply touched by Dattari. He also donated or sold many, but we still don't know where they all ended up. So, the still open question is, where are these coins now? We can get a sense of how massive Dattari's Ptolemaic collection was thanks to the wonderful catalog published by Ioannis Voronos between 1904 and 1908. Right at the start of the work, among the institution or private collection contacted for the overall elaboration of the extensive catalog of specimens, there was indeed an entry Dattari. Furthermore, Svoronos specified that from the rich collection of Giovanni Dattari will come Ecmageia, Chartina, Apotupomata, Caetasol Cas, ides casts, rubbers, and numerous other specific indications. By analyzing the occurrence in the numismata Tucratus Tom Ptolemaion, it is thus possible to deduce that the information provided by Dattari concerned more than 700 Ptolemaic coins of different issues. Undoubtedly, this indication describes one of the richest, but above all, most varied collections in the early 20th century. In Gnecchi's 1903 Guida Numismatica Universale, the collection was estimated at 910 coins. So again, we are talking about a major private holding. The large number of Ptolemaic specimens in Dattari's possession is also substantiated by the information regarding the coins he sent to museums, institutions, or individual collectors. A significant number were donated to the library of the Egyptian University. We don't know the exact number. A substantial nucleus then came in several lots to the Italian Numismatic Society, la Società Numismatica Italiana. Reports in Rivista Italiana di Numismatica show that 21 Ptolemaic silver coins arrived in Milan in 1894, followed by 89 bronzes in 1896, another 153 bronzes in 1899, and an unknown number again in 1901. The precise location of the coins is known, or rather unknown. In fact, during the Second World War, the building where they were stored was bombed by the Allies, and when society members went to recover the collection, they found only a lump of molten metal. Sic transit this part of the Dattari collection. In addition, as Voronos recalled in the page of the Journal International d'Archéologie Numismatique, between 1904 and 1905, alongside the imitation owl and the die from Tel El Atrib, the Numismatico Museo in Athens also received some 100 Ptolemaic coins. Moreover, according to the report compiled by Henri Marcel for the Journal de la Bibliothèque Nationale de Paris, in 1909, as many as 539 coins of Alexander the Great, the Ptolemies, Constantine, and his successors were donated to the cabinet on the 50th anniversary of the battles of Solferino and Magenta. In 1909, Charles Langfrère facilitated the donation of additional coins to the Kelsey Museum, which now houses a collection of 3,172 coins from the Alexandrian and late Roman Empire series, along with a core group of approximately 100 specimens representing the Hellenistic world. Finally, a substantial nucleus of the Dattari Ptolemy collection comprises some 400 coins, including exceptional decadrams and octograms of Arsinoe, was transferred to the Cabinet de Médailles in 1960 following its purchase at auction in Basel. But even if Dattari had a lot of Ptolemy coins, they only rarely inspired works or scientific investigation of the various issues involved. Despite the sheer number of coins he owned, Dattari didn't publish much scholarly work on them. Only 4 papers of his focused on Ptolemy coins. The first mention we have of them is from 1902, when Dattari wrote about Alexandrian numismatics and mentioned the Ptolemite tetradrachms produced in the 1st century BC. He said that these coins were still in circulation at the time of Tiberius. Having demonstrated the parallel circulation of the final series of Ptolemite tetradrachms and the series of Alexandrian tetradrachms through the evidence of words, Dattari proceeded to emphasize the connection between the 2 series, also through data concerning the silver content of the 2 issues. In that year, Dattari wrote and I translate, Ptolemy XII ascended the throne and tetradrachms were immediately minted, which contained about 67% of silver, than that contained in the tetradrachms of the previous reign. The weight was kept at 14 grams, but of these only 4.33 grams were pure silver, and the rest copper and other alloy. Furthermore, he said, the standard weight of Tiberius tetradrachms was established at 14 grams. Analysis of 3 tetradrachms revealed their silver content to be 4.2 grams and 4.1 grams, respectively. The present study has demonstrated that the new tetradrachms and those of Ptolemy XII were in circulation contemporaneously. It is implausible to hypothesize that the tetradrachms of Tiberius possessed a lower value than their counterparts. Therefore, the discrepancy observed in the tetradrachms of Tiberius must be attributed to the oxidation. When Hazard and Brown conducted a new analysis of the contents of other Ptolemaic tetradrachms in 1984, the data would have further confirmed what Dattari had previously pointed out, with the analysis of a single piece, namely the resounding drop in title of the tetradrachm during the years of Ptolemy XII. As well as this short detour to set the scene for the Alexandria series, in 1905, Dattari went back to some issues produced under the satrapy of Ptolemy Lagus, in an article in the Bulletin de la Société archéologique d'Alexandrie. In the short note, the Italian, in particular, analyzed the 20 coins that came out during the excavation at the necropolis of Chatbi, which Evaristo Breccia had done. As Breccia himself said, the coins found during the excavation would have been really useful for dating the whole funerary context. It was to Dattari that Breccia entrusted the task of analyzing the numismatic materials. And in a beautiful note, as Evaristo Breccia said, the 20 coins will find there not always exhaustive analysis and cataloging. Within a major group of specimens datable mostly to the end of the 4th century BC and the years of Ptolemy I, Dattari first noted the presence of uncommon furre. This class of material, which would subsequently emerge almost a century later in excavation in Alexandria, did not appear to cause Dattari any particular astonishment. Indeed, he had already confirmed the relative frequency of this class of material already noted by Svobodas. Even though 1908 was the year that Dattari got swept up in the whole Abukir medallions controversy, he still managed to publish another paper, his third work dedicated to the Ptolemaic series. It appeared, as usual, in the Rivista Italiana di Numismatica of that year. The paper tackled a well-known technical audit in the bronze coin first issued in Egypt under Ptolemy Philadelphus. In this paper, Dattari went directly against the mainstream view of his time, especially those held by Ernest Bablon, and was characterized by a polemical approach that appears to have become more pronounced during that period. While Bablon had argued that monetary flams were cut from a metal plate, incredible, Dattari countered with the assertion that they were in fact obtained through casting metal in molds and rodent using a lathe, thereby explaining the origin of the central cavities. I'm not going into further detail here, but it is clear that Dattari never intended to classify the Ptolemaic series. His cataloging interest has been totally absorbed by the Alexandrian series, which, compared to the Ptolemaic series, are less monotonous, to borrow Reginald Stuart Poole words. At the same time, Svoronow's book was being published, and it could only be surpassed in terms of scientific intensity and completeness a century later by Catherine Lorber's wonderful work, not by Dattari. After this paper on the production technique of the Ptolemaic coins, Dattari would return a few years later for a fourth and last intervention on the Ptolemaic coinage, once again in the Rivista Italiana di Numismatica. The complex topic chosen, namely, according to the title here in translation, new attempt at the metrological reconstruction of the bronze coins of the Ptolemies and the relationship between the silver and copper drachms, was to push Dattari to confront one of the most difficult questions of the entire monetary history of Ptolemaic Egypt. The debate had been refreshed since the late 19th century, following the significant discovery of papyri that indicated numerous exchange rates between silver and bronze currencies. The starting point for Dattari's intervention was the publication in 1903 by Friedrich Hulch of Die Ptolemäische Münz und Rechnungswerte, in which the head had taken up a topic already addressed in his earlier Griechische und Römische Metrologie, published in 1862. Dattari suggested that the fluctuating rates of exchange between silver and bronze coins derived from the papyri were essentially due to the actual values of the silver coins. Idest describes or contracted parties' knowledge of the mixed metal of which the tetradrachms of the later Ptolemies would be composed. Dattari's wrong idea that the face value of the coin, the most important part of the monetary fact, didn't exist was soon forgotten, especially after the successful 1928 publication by Théodore Reinach of Du rapport des valeurs des métaux monétaires dans l'Égypte au temps de Ptolémée. While this publication didn't resolve all the issues surrounding Ptolemaic metrology, it was much clearer than Dattari's intervention. However, the 1910s marked the beginning of Dattari's scientific and international decline. The affairs surrounding the Abukir medallions, which he vigorously maintained to be false, led him into a protracted dispute with Dressel, Svoronos, Furiolenzi, and the broader European numismatic community. This was in addition to his previous disputes with Stuart Hill and Warwick Broad concerning other matters. It is probable that his failure to publish the revised edition of his catalogue of Alexandrian coins also contributed to his resentment, and his numismatic passion seemed to have been extinguished thereafter. Indeed, it is evident that he ceased to write on the subject of coins and instead focused his attention on Egyptian scarabs, particularly those belonging to King Fuad. In a letter dated August 25, 1920, Furiolenzi, the editor of Rassegna Numismatica, described Dattari as a friend of the current Sultan of Egypt. In 1922, Ugo Moneret de Villars further elaborated on Dattari's pivotal role during the final years of the Egyptian monarch's life, stating that he was regarded as the overseer of the Egyptian collections. I had the privilege, said Ugo Moneret de Villars, I had the privilege of visiting the extensive collection of His Majesty the King of Egypt, in which I was greatly assisted by the courtesies of the director, Mr. Dattari. We know that the collection of King Fuad is now in the Cairo Museum. Giovanni Dattari died in Cairo in February 28, 1923. His family placed an obituary in L'Imparziale, an Italian-language newspaper published in Egypt. News of his passing was also shared during the annual general meeting of the Royal Numismatic Society later that year. A fitting gesture, as Dattari had been a fellow of the society since May 17 of the beginning of the century. It's saying that this recognition came from the English-speaking world. Despite occasional disagreements, Dattari had long been in close contact with that community and that supplied coins to both collectors and major institutions over the years. Thank you. Here the bibliography of the life and collection Dattari Savi of Giovanni Dattari. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or you can unmute and just ask them to Alessandra yourself if you'd like.
Okay. So I'm guessing.
Hello, Alessandro.
Here I am.
You mentioned that, it's well known if you look at the catalog, this Svoronos catalog, that there's many entries that refer to Dattari.
Yes,
Did
700.
yeah, did you actually extract and separately inventory all of those entries?
Yes, I start with connecting the coins in Svoronos and the coins in Cabinet de Medaille because they are at the Cabinet de Medaille.
All right, so those are the ones you were able to follow. So the other ones are the ones that the other ones in the lists. I mean, there's an enormous list of 1,800 or 1,900 types in this
Yes.
Verona's catalog. So there's hundreds of them that have apparently vanished.
Yes, yes, but I think somewhere, I don't know where, we have maybe in Numismaticum Museum in Athens, we can find the rubbers of the Ptolemaic coins of Dattari, I think. I'm not so sure. I have to write to Eva Apostolou or Vasiliki Stefanaki because it's an idea. I have this idea, but I have no proof that this is a good way to find the collection. It's not a real collection. It's coins used for funding the major collection, the Alexandrian one, I think.
Thank you. Very nice to see you. A lovely presentation. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of good thanks and praise for your talk in the chats as well. Just any other questions anyone wants to ask?
Well, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, not so good
Okay.
listening, but maybe I understand.
A good friend of mine, Tom Beniak, has been selling his Roman Egyptian coins on the CNG website. There's another batch that will be up in I don't know if it'll be a couple of weeks. And I think in Triton in January, he'll be selling, I think there may be some other, the drams or whatever. But one question that I have is, why are these coins, why are there so many extremely rare coins in this series? And I'm wondering, do you collect these coins yourself?
Me. I don't know exactly a good answer to this question. I don't know exactly. I'm sure that when Dattari sell his coins, he never obtained the good price for this because he had so many coins in his hand, on his hands, and the market was full of the coins he put in the market. We know that all the Alexandrian coins are in the hand of Dattari, and also the Ptolemaic coins. In this brief period from 1819 to the 1910. So Zvoronos would be richest than he was, but he has some problem to sell the coins. Sometimes he donated. I'm sure that he had the coins of the later Roman Empire. He had a lot of these coins, and he gave as a present to various institutions, British Museum, Cabinet Royal de Bruxelles, because they have no real value, have no price in this period. He's not a very lucky collector, according to me. The period is not the right period for selling coins.
Yeah. Even now, Tom Beniak's coins did not receive the prices they should have gotten based on rarity. And maybe it's because when something only comes up for sale once every 30 years, no market is developed for that.
Yes.
But it is unfortunate because there's just so many rarities.
Yes. Thank you very much for your observation, and also about the CNG. I have to work about this. Thank you very much.
And then one other thing I would just like to mention, those of us who are coin collectors, ancient coin collectors, we are very upset about this tariff situation. And you know, I just want you to know what's happened is not the sentiment of about half of our population or more. And I hope that is taken care of so that we can have more free transfer back and forth. We have many great friends from Europe that come to New York every year. And, you know, this whole situation is really a mess. And I hope it gets cleared up, you know, sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later. I hope so. Maybe in Frankfurt, I think when we'll be in Frankfurt for the International Numismatic Congress, I hope all the situation will be very different from now.
Yeah.
Hoping.
We're hoping the Europeans don't hate us all because it's sometimes governments do things that that were completely unexpected, and you know
But
most people didn't have a clue this was going to happen.
but also here we are not in a beautiful situation also here in Italy.
Yeah.
We are friends in this point of view. No problems.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions anyone would like to ask?
Well, thank you for a really great presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my English is not so very good,
Yeah.
but I try
Well,
to.
my Italian is a lot worse than your English, so you did great. You know, so
Thank you
yeah.
very much. I have to come some, yeah, I don't know, in Great Britain or Malta or in USA to use more English in my life, but
Yeah.
now I have to
No,
use Italian
but
here.
you're very understandable though. We can get it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So just in terms of next week, we will be closed for Good Friday. So don't try to click in or anything, but we'll be back on April 25th with Kevin Flynn, who will be discussing Restrike's Storied Treasures of the US Mint. So thank you again, Alessandro. Very much appreciate you coming on a Friday night, no less, to speak with us. And thank you everyone else who was able to join in.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.